whatever. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. I promise. Let's do a little blessing that we can soak ourselves in some Torah first, please. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kijanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. That's like the Doppler effect on the Zoom, right? You just hear it. Never mind. Okay, we're going to jump right in. Now, there are a whole bunch of very classic big deals going on in this. Andre, gotta get Andre in here in this Torah portion. And I'm going to share my screen, if you would allow me. Here we go. Let's see what this is. Why is it doing that? Give me 1 second, everybody. Just want to make sure that it's up and running nicely. Here we go. Bear with me. This is the one. Ta-da! Here we go. Look at this. Okay, we're doing a little Vayera today. Now, here's the first part. What's this happened? So last week we were in Lech Lecha and Moses, really? Abraham and Sarah, who are now Abraham and Sarah, no longer Avram and Sarai. Their names have been changed, right? Their names have been changed to Abraham and Sarah, right? One of the beautiful teachings I heard about this, right, is because of their belief and their foundation and trust in faith in God, to be able to use that faith as a launch point, a strong foundation as a launch point to go into the unknown, right? To go into the unknown. And their faith is literally now in their names, right? That adding that hey, which is another way of writing God's name into their names, right? Avram becomes Abraham and Sarai becomes Sarah, right? That God is right there with them. So and poor Abraham, little circumcision for this guy, right? At this age, doing it for himself. Yeah. And he's like, all right, I'm going to do this. This is my faith. I believe in it. I'm all in. I am all in. So it makes this next part even more fascinating, right? So here he is. He's just hanging out outside of his tent with Sarah. I'm going to just jump right in. And God appeared to him by the terebinths of Mamre. He was sitting at the entrance of his tent. The day grew hot. So he's sitting out there and he's like hot. He just had his circumcision too. So he can't be comfortable. He can't be comfortable, right? And looking up, he saw 3 men standing near him. As soon as he saw them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to go and greet them and bow down to the ground. He didn't even just welcome. He didn't just say, hey, come on over. No, he didn't even just get up and walk over. What did he do? He jumps out of his chair and he runs to greet these people. Now, some say he's like, well, he was just very happy to see some new people because he's just been spending all this time with Sarah because they don't know anybody else in this new land. So he's like, wow, this would be great to go see other people. Sort of like, in my house when we get to go see other friends, my kids get to see other friends. They're like fabulous. I don't just have to see my parents anymore because they're, but they get to go out. So he jumps up, he goes and see them, and he's even in a lot of pain. And yet he's still, right? He runs to greet them. He bows down and he's like, my Lord, if it please you, do not go on past your servant. Let a little water be brought. Let me bathe your feet and recline under the tree. And let me fetch you a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves and then go on, seeing that you have come your servant's way. All right. So let's stop the share for a second. What's going on here? What's the big deal here? And let's look at it in the context of the last Torah portion, this piece right here, and then something that comes up later that we'll talk about in a bit, the binding of Isaac. If you remember, we read that also in Rosh Hashanah. It's the binding of Isaac. So what's going on here? What did Abraham just do? Miriam.
Well, I sort of answer that and what I think he did, but I have a question to ask. I'll say what I think Abraham did was start the entire concept of Hachnasat Orchim.
Beautiful. Which is, translate that please into English.
It's the welcoming of guests.
Okay.
It's a very strong part of Judaism. And up until the COVID, I think we more than welcome guests into our house, and especially when you feel safe about it, which of course that time. And
so Miriam, I'm going to cut you off real quick.
A very quick question.
No, I'm cutting you off real quick. Hold on. I'm going to cut you off real quick because here's the thing. It doesn't even have to just be physically. Look, we'll welcome each other into this beautiful Zoom room, right? How often is it we get to be in here together?
Okay, I love that.
All right, go to your question. Sorry, I interrupted.
My question is, Vayera Elav Adonai Be'eronei. Okay, and God appeared to him. It doesn't explain, unless it was the three men. How does it explain to us? This is my question.
Go.
I don't know how God appeared to him. In what way? And what happened that God appeared to him? It doesn't explain it. I personally would like an explanation. For 100 years, I read it without any. Today, I'd like to know what it means.
Well, okay. Well, this is a really great question. And there's going to be a little spoiler. I'll try that again. Spoiler alerts. Yes, spoiler alerts in my answer. Okay. So who were those? And look, this is an answer. I'm not sure. I would never go to say is the answer, but it is an answer to your question. Who were these three quote unquote men?
Angels.
Angels. Okay.
So God appeared to him as by sending his messengers.
Okay. So oftentimes, right, angels, the appearance of angels are what's the word? You can switch the appearance of angels with the appearance of God in front of, right? That angels are the way that God reveals God's self to individuals. So the fact that the first statement says, and God appeared before Abraham, and then the next thing we see these three men, that is foreshadow to who these men actually are. So that's the way that God appeared, was through these two human beings. Risa and then Penina.
I just think it means that the reader knows that they're angels right away because we're told that God came, but we don't know when or if Abraham comes to know that it's that they're angels. He doesn't
Fabulous. Know. So this is like what do you call that in literature? So we know, right? That's the fourth wall over here. We know, but Abraham did it. We're like, oh, Abraham, check out what's coming. Good. Thank you, Risa. Penina.
Okay. Every time that there was a special personality that arose in the Bible to change the course of history, usually the mother is barren, and there are angels showing up to either the father or the mother herself, or she tells that she saw an angel, and then that personality shows up on the screen. We're starting with Sarah. She was barren. She gave birth to Isaac. Isaac continued the whole history and development of the Jewish faith, supposedly, like reopening the wells and putting back the altars. And then his wife is barren, supposedly, Isaac's wife, I'm talking about now. And here comes Jacob, so who eventually will be the father of the 12 tribes who are going to form the nation of Israel. Then we have Hannah, who was barren, and then Samuel came. But before that, we had Samson. Samson was the last judge, and after him, history changed because a king showed up. He was such a bad judge that people didn't want him anymore. But because he changed the face of history, his mom also was barren. And here comes Samson into the screen. So then comes a different time in the whole nation, which is the monarchy. And then we continue already whatever happened with Melachim. But if you're looking at the book of those first four personalities that I can think of right now, this is what happened. The mother was barren to show us that somebody really special was coming to the screen.
Foreshadow.
And so forth. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, Saftas. Thank you, Pnina. Perfect. So yeah, so there you go, Mary. There's just all these little hints for us. All these little hints, right? Is that kind of helpful for you moving forward? Fabulous. Okay, so let's just, okay, so this is also kind of cool. So wait, I think, yes, Miriam said, Hachnasat Ochim. So we were saying that what happened before the Lech Lecha, it's like one of the many tests. What God keeps testing Abraham and Sarah to see if they're going to become the mother and the father of the Jewish people. Even though, right, Sarah is barren, she doesn't have a child. She's not going to have a child until she's in her 90s, and it's like all bananas. Yet this is all these things going to happen, but they keep putting Abraham and Sarah through these tests, focusing on Abraham. And one of the tests is Hachnasat Ochim. So it's like one of the building blocks of who we are as a people is how we welcome guests into our, whether it's physical home, right? And it's not even just like, yeah, sure, come on in, but it needs to be done with vigor and excitement, right? He doesn't just be like, hey guys, come on over here. He actually jumps out of his seat and runs over. So this Torah portion, now I'm going to share a little something, I'll share little something with you later, is very personal to me. Right, it's very personal to me, because so one of the tests, what does it say? That he goes and he gives them something to drink, gives them something to eat, and gives them rest. Right, ochel, shtiya, velina in Hebrew. Ochel, aleph, shtiya, which is drink, shin, and lina, which means to rest. Lamed, aleph, shin, lamed. Do you know what that spells?
Eshel.
Eshel. That's me, right? No, see, so my last name.
It's a name of a tree
acronym.
also.
So my last name, I know, don't give it away, Pnina. Don't give it away. My last name, Eshel, comes from this Torah portion multiple times. So the first one is an acronym for one of the tests of Abraham. Right, Hachnasat Ochim is one of our is built on Ochel, Shtiya, Velina, food, drink, and rest, and the way that we welcome people into our midst. So this is it's a very special Torah portion. Okay, so then I want to point something out to you that's also kind of interesting, right? So he comes and gives them food. They say that Abraham, Sarah, are they really the first Jews? It's like they're proto-Jews, maybe. They're not really the Jews yet. And how do we know that? So check it out. I'm gonna show you something here. All right. So I'm coming down. Do you see? Everybody sees this? All right, here he goes. So Abraham's really excited. He says, let's fetch a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. Then go on, seeing that you have come your servant's way. They replied, do as you have said. Abraham hastened into the tent of Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of choice flour. Knead and make cakes. Then Abraham ran to the herd, took a calf, tender and choice, and gave it to a servant boy who hastened to prepare it. He took curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them, and he waited on them under the tree as they ate. Does anything kind of strike you as interesting about this meal?
Meat in the milk.
Eat milk.
Yeah.
Hello, the first cheeseburgers over here. Oh my goodness. Oh my, right? And when people read this, it kind of blows their mind. Like, what? They're mixing meat and milk? How could that be? That's not what, right? But we don't have any of those laws yet. We don't have any of those. So it's funny to me when we call Abraham and Sarah the first Jews, right? Because what does that really mean? It's really like they were the first, I don't know, not even monotheists. I don't know. Merle, what do you have to say?
They were the first good people. The
first,
hospitality.
Okay.
And all that they did for these men was they were showing they were there for them.
Wow.
Beyond good people. And
this is interesting. That's a fabulous segue. Fabulous segue. Jeff, I was actually a little concerned because we're already 21 minutes in, and that's the first time
Well,
you've raised your hand.
I followed directions. I raised my hand under the chat instead of interfering. I was being kind. Backfired. I don't think that that's the real essence of this initial test. I think the real essence of this test is the signs of humility.
Ooh.
The man washes their feet. He
Beautiful.
becomes an overt servant
Beautiful.
to what he sees as divine intervention, in a sense.
Beautiful.
That he humbles himself to that spirit of things that is going on right then and there. The meal and the accoutrements mean nothing. It's the act of humility and humbleness before the Lord that is the test.
you have to want to do it too.
Yeah,
Wow,
you
that's
have to
interesting.
choose
Okay.
to
That goes
do it.
with what Jeff said. You have to, part of the test is, do you really want to do this without like throwing it at them and being angry at them for invading your time, your space?
Well, this is interesting because that's also a fabulous segue to the next thing that I want to discuss. Is that okay? Good. So let's hold on to that idea: humility and goodness and all that kind of things. Okay, because this is really interesting. Fabulous. Hold on to that. Hold on to that. Hold on to that. Let's look at this thing again. Boom. All right. All right. So now, when we talk about goodness and humility, this next test is one of the interesting texts that they talk about, like why is Abraham? Why are Abraham and Moses held up so much higher than Noah? When we talk about goodness and righteousness, right? Because if you remember from our Torah study before about Noah, right? And it said that he was ich tzadik bedorotav, ish tzadik bedorotav, that he was a righteous man in his generation, a righteous man in his generation. But the question is like, well, what does this mean about in his generation? Is righteousness can't righteousness or shouldn't righteousness be compared only to itself, right? What does it mean within his generation, right? So somebody who is righteous at one time, if compared to somebody during another time, they're going to look at, but situations are different, worlds are different, experiences are different, right? The times that we live in are different. How can you judge somebody's righteousness compared to a different time that they live in, right? Talia's here. Fabulous. We were waiting. So, people say like, well, Noah didn't argue, right? Have you heard that before? Noah didn't argue with God. He just, fine, I'll build this ark, whatever. I know you're going to destroy all these people and whatever, that's cool. God did not, or Moses, Noah didn't argue. But Moses argued, right? They said Moses argued for the people at the golden calf, because after the golden calf, God just wanted to get rid of all of them, go find some new people to take over. And God's like, whoa, take it easy, take it easy, take it easy. Nobody did anything about getting rid of anybody, right? So they said that Moses argued with God on behalf of the people, that Abraham argued with God, boom, right over here, right? This is the famous story of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? I'm just going to jump right in. The Lord said, the outrage of Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, their sin so grave, I will go down and see whether they have acted altogether according to the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will take note. The men went on from Sodom, and while Abraham remained standing before the Lord, Abraham came forward, chutzpah, in humility, right? Will you sweep away the innocent along with the guilty? What if there should be 50 innocent within the city? Will you then wipe out a place, not forgive it for the sake of the innocent 50 who are there? And then so on and so on. And Abraham actually, what's the word? Not barters. Abraham negotiates. Yes. Abraham's negotiating with God. Negotiating with God? Well, okay, so maybe this means that he is more righteous than Noah because Noah didn't say anything. He's negotiating with God. Who does that? Chutzpah. And all the way down to 10, right? All the way down to 10. But it turns out there weren't even there 10. And then after all of that, they still got taken out. But the point is that Abraham and Moses, right, are held higher than Noah, at least on this point, because they negotiated and argued with God, right? Now, if it stood only like this, fine, right? But there's a lot of other stuff going on over here. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Abraham is arguing and negotiating with God for people he doesn't know, right? Noah, maybe he knows some people, maybe he does. I'm sure he knew something. Moses, he knew the Israelites. He was like very, very invested, stake in it. But Abraham, he's arguing with people he doesn't even know. He's arguing for people he doesn't even know. Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
You talk of the tests.
Yes.
And what this bespeaks to me is this is a statement of Abraham's intrinsic morality and respect for all life. That he had an intrinsic.
By what comes next?
By what comes next, it's the other precept that says, once God has truly made up his mind about death and destruction, the degree is irreversible.
That's not even what comes next that I'm talking about.
Okay. What are you talking about?
The Akedah.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
You're not going to like my answer about the Akedah.
I might like your answer about the Akedah. I might, but we're going to. And again, that's spoiler alert.
I'm looking for the lightning right now. It's coming down right as we
it's not. It's good. You're fine. Not a cloud in the sky, though it is supposed to rain this Shabbat. I don't know. Spoiler alert, right? We're coming up on the Akedah, or the binding of Isaac, or another one thing that they call it, the sacrifice of Isaac. But it's also very interesting. All right, we're about to get, but before we get there, here's another little something that I was a little like, if this guy is really so righteous and fabulous.
Oh, about his wife, Sarah, when they go through Egypt, and he says, she's my sister, not
this
my wife.
This is what we're doing. Check it out. So from there, right after this thing, what's on it, they're like, okay, here we go. Abraham, get ready for this. Abraham journeyed from there to the region of the Negev and settled between Kadesh and Shur. While he was sojourning in Gerar, get ready for this, Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, oh, this lady, this is my sister. This is my sister. So King Abimelech of Gerar had Sarah brought to him. What? But God came to Abimelech in a dream that night and said, you are to die because of the woman you have taken, for she is a married woman. Now Abimelech had not approached her, right? He didn't,
cohabitate.
Cohabitate. Yes, he didn't do that, right? He said, oh Lord, will you slay people even though innocent? He himself said to me, she is my sister. Abraham said it was his sister. And she also said, yeah, he's my brother, which we didn't see in the text before that she said that, but apparently she did. When I did this, my heart was blameless and my hands were clean. And God said to him in the dream, I knew that you did this with a blameless heart, so I kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Therefore, restore the man's wife, since he is a prophet. He will intercede for you to save your life. If you fail to restore her, know that you shall die, you and all that are yours. But I'm going to cover the next part up just for a second. Okay. Actually, I'll just stop the share because there's the next part, which I thought was like, what? I didn't remember this. I mean, I did, but I remember the first time I read that part, I was like, whoa, I didn't know this. Okay, so if he is so like blameless and righteous, he willingly gives over Sarah to Avimelech, knowing full well what could happen. He does this to save himself, because he was like, well, if I told her he's my wife, he'd take me out because she's so beautiful. But this way I kind of tricked him. But he had no idea if that was going to happen. And he used Sarah as a bait. Right? He used Sarah as bait. So it's like, okay, this man who is supposedly like, so humble, and the way that he welcomed these people, and then he like argued with God in defense of these human beings to save the souls, even though he had no idea who they were, and he's trying to save even 10 righteous people and all that kind of stuff. Now all of a sudden he's gonna argue to save these people, but his own wife, his own wife, Susan.
So this is the second time he's doing that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is the first time.
This is the first, but it's going to happen again.
Right, with Egypt and the Pharaoh.
I thought we did that anyway. Whatever. The first. So we're balancing some virtues against faults, and this has always bothered me. With Abraham being such a model. So
Susan, can you maybe speak up a little bit more? Come closer to your mic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So we balance his virtues of welcoming strangers, the hospitality, the humility, and this big thing with arguing about Sodom and Gomorrah, and they couldn't find 10 righteous people, by the way. So,
Correct.
and then later when we learn about, or when we were learning more about Lot, these were really despicable people. So he was arguing for these absolutely horrific, despicable people in a bad community. Then, and it always bothers me, you're leading up to that Abraham argues for saving them, but doesn't argue for saving his own son. And that is, I don't think is a balance. I think it's in balance of good versus not so good. I think he comes out heavy on the not so good. I think
he comes out heavy on the not so good.
That's correct. Welcoming a stranger versus killing your son.
Yeah. Okay. Pnina, Risa, then Jeff.
Okay. I think we have to go back before the son, first of all, to understand what happened with Sarah. So according to Nechama Leibovich, who I tried to look what she had to say about this thing, she avoided this whole thing. And when she came to Chayei Sarah, she quoted Rashi and other interpreters, and they leaned on the story of Adam and Eve, that Eve came along or was created to complete Adam. It was a joint, like a unit, that a woman is coming aboard to complete her husband or her partner. So when it came to Sarah, he actually told Sarah. Sarah could have said no. Her name shows that she was in charge in more than one way. Even when she sent Hagar, she was in charge, and he listened to her. So when he tells her, say that and do that, she is in cahoot with him. She goes and she says, he's my brother. And according to some of the Parshanim, she was his half-sister. In those days, they married their half-sisters. So
it's not even just the Parshanim. That's what I covered up. We'll see it in a second.
Right. And the way Nechama Leibovich avoids it, and she brings Adam and Eve, so it comes out to, I think, interpreting that they acted as a unit. And she agreed. And he received a lot of things, like cows and camels and this and that from the king. And he did not give it back. On the contrary, the king asked him if he wants more other stuff. And he said that whatever he took, he took. So in other words, they came to a lot of wealth because of this business. And that like Rashi thinks that she was a tzadikah. That's what he says. She was a righteous woman, and she literally went along with it. It was with her permission and her ingenuity also. So that's what I came from, that particular
commentary.
Beautiful. Thank you. Risa.
According to the women's commentary, we are in the second situation. They refer
Second situation. First happened on the Lech Lecha.
Yeah, they refer us back to Genesis chapter 12.
Yeah.
So when the Egyptians see you and say, this is his wife, they may kill me, but you shall keep alive.
Thank you, Risa.
So yeah, there it is.
Beautiful, Risa. Thank you. Jeff.
My pleasure.
You know, this has a very negative connotation for me in the fact that this represents the antithesis of the ERA, that women are chattel. And in fact, women have been paid for by the king in chattel, in cows, in this, in that they remain property. Not once do you see Abraham lauding the qualities of Sarah, that there is no, at least verbal appreciation in the Torah portions of his respect for this person as a prophetess, as a wife, as a partner. She will do what I tell her to do. She may agree, but she had no choice but to agree. And it's really got some negative connotations for me as far as women at that time and the fact that they were not considered equal on any level.
So I wonder, is it also then appropriate not just to say that Noah ish tzadik b'dorotav, but also Abraham ish tzadik b'dorotav, that yes, he was righteous, but only in his generation? I never thought of it that way. Maybe I need to say that. I don't, that's a really, okay. Cool. Talia, go.
I was just saying, I agree. Me too. I agree with what Jeff said.
It's funny that you pointed this way because on my screen, he's also this way for you. So that actually worked out really well. Nan, Nan, then Susan.
On Wednesday mornings at the ungodly hour of 7 o'clock, Stryker puts on these different biblical, archaeological speakers. And this last week was about women in antiquity. And the professor, the doctorate who spoke on this, said that that when she tests her students and ask them, what do you think was the role of women in antiquity like this? I mean, in biblical times, they always write down slave, chattel. But she said that the archaeological finds support that the women were more respected than we think they were. They weren't chattel, they were COOs, she said. They had very specific roles that ran the commerce of the house. And it doesn't.
And where was she getting this idea from? Like what was like from the archaeology?
Well, one of the things, but if you go to Stryker, I know they archive all these speakers, so you could listen to her. They're all amazing. I mean, they said, for instance, David did not kill Goliath, and they have reasons for, archaeological, biblical things that support that theory. But okay, so one of the things she said was the production of grain. The grain was their main commerce, and the women were the ones who knew how to farm and prepare the grain. And it was an arduous process, but they had honed their skills and the tools necessary. So they used, I mean, that's one of the things, but it's really fascinating that we think that women in biblical times were, like you said, chattel, like Jeff said, but in fact, she said it doesn't really. There are a lot of archaeological finds that don't support that.
Remember, there were two kingdoms. There was the male kingdom and the male responsibilities, and then there was the red tent society. Yeah. Then there was the women in their tents and the skills that they were masters of, without a doubt. But the two worlds never really interacted in a controlled fashion of equality. There was always a hierarchy of power.
Go,
while
Nan.
and while I haven't read it, I did notice in the grocery store this morning that the most recent issue of the National Geographic is all about women in biblical times.
Talia, then Miriam.
So in studying
Oh,
about
sorry. Susan, I forgot it
Yeah,
was Susan first.
I don't
Sorry.
agree.
Susan, Talia, Miriam. Go, Susan.
Yeah, I agree with Nan. And I don't agree that I think we're a mindset of feminism here, of 20th century feminism, and that we're looking back at all the abuses. Now, sure, there were some inequalities, but in terms of Sarah, I don't think he regarded her as chattel. I mean, she controlled a good deal of the scene behind with the Hagar thing and that.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, and she had control, and she's and I agree with Benina that she was a partner in this, even though he suggested that this was a life and death matter for Abraham, and she agreed in this partnership to save her husband. So I don't see this as this 20th century, 21st century feminism, how much women were oppressed. And from what I've read from some of the subsequent things, that women ran households. Some of them were, I mean, and later we're talking, there were entrepreneurs too. So I don't see this from that 21st century post-feminist, that everything was bad for women.
Beautiful. So maybe she also tzadika b'dorota. Good. Talia. Thank you, Susan.
So I would just like to point out that there is this thing like Stockholm syndrome, where you think that you're, it's almost like a survival skill. And also
I know it is. You don't have to explain it. Yes, but I'm sorry, interrupting.
Go on, Talia, go.
Go on.
I'm just saying that, like with Bedouin women, they thinking that there's power, thinking that they have power in controlling like the cabinets and the fridge in the kitchen, that they have control over the food, but they have no legal power. So if you look back at who was establishing the laws, and were the laws made to benefit the men? Were there laws that protected women, or did women have to only be protected by gossiping to their neighbor that their husband's beating them, and then hopefully that neighbor wife will go to her husband and put pressure on the community for him to stop beating his wife? Or is that just like maybe going to get her killed? So are the laws in place to protect women at that time? And that's where the power is.
Great, thank you. Miriam, unmute yourself. There you go.
I can't help but think of how advanced the women were in part of the Bible. They were not advanced when you read the Sotah story, which is a disturbing story where a man is allowed to accuse his wife of adultery without her even being able to speak up for herself. But then you have, to offset all of this, you have the 5 daughters of Tzlach, who had no brother. And when their father died, they said everything should go to us, just as though we were sons. Just because we're daughters does not mean that we should not get our fair share of the property and everything else that belongs to the heirs. And we therefore need to be heirs. They were far more advanced than England was in the 18th century about women and about women progeny versus male progeny. And Moses agreed with them, and he got God's permission to go ahead and give them everything that was due.
You're looking at it wrong, Miriam.
Hold on, Jeff. Hold on. Jeff, don't make me mute you. Don't make me mute you.
Okay.
It's Talia's turn, then it'll be your turn, Jeff, after Miriam.
I'm so sorry, Miriam.
Okay, dear. Now, another point is Rivka. Look what a wife she was. She had every say. She wanted Jacob to get the blessing from Yitzchak. She did not want Esau to get it. She machinated and did a whole lot of stuff to get Jacob get the blessing. And we have very strong women in the Bible among what we might think of as women who were put down. But I think the stronger ones were now. That's my feeling.
Great. Pnina and then Jeff.
Okay, well, we're going back now to the Akedah. When he took Isaac, Sarah supposedly wasn't told, but she overheard it and saw the whole preparation, and she thought that he is going to kill him, and she thought that that's it. He would sacrifice his son. Sarah had her own place in Hebron, and we say Ohala. It means she had her own tent. It was specifically hers. She was a princess. Her headquarters were in Hebron. When she found out what he wanted to do to Isaac, even though it didn't come true, she left him and she went to live in Hebron, and they never went back together. When she died, Isaac went to take her bones and with Abraham and to bury her, but she never went back. And Abraham went back to his concubine. He went back to Hagar in Beersheba, in the desert, where Ishmael was. When Abraham died, Ishmael and Isaac together went to get his bones and bury him together with his wife. But she left him, never to come back to him.
Yeah, they did. She never spoke again to him. Beautiful. Thank you, Pnina. Now, Jeff.
Just a couple of thoughts and a question.
Please.
Maybe the question should come first.
Okay.
And the question comes to understanding who was involved actually in the covenant. You're talking about circumcision and you're talking about the men. What inclusive fact deals with the women and the covenant? Where do we go with understanding why they were committed in the same way to the covenant that men are in Judaism? And it's bothersome that much of what we see appears to be gross inequality, regardless of some of the strengths of these women. Miriam referenced the acts of
Daughters of Zelophehad.
Not just that one, but the idea of the
Rivka.
stealing of Esau's birthright,
Rivka.
etc., Rivka. And, you can look at that as really negative personality characteristics, that she would plot to steal something. We don't know that it's ethical to imagine or hear prophecy that only one has to be the father of the ongoing Israelite generations. But
that is also what God told her to do. That is what God told her to do in the beginning.
Right.
She was, whether it was stealing or it was her just trying to this is what God said has to happen, so I need to make this happen.
And Jeff, I wasn't extolling her personality. I was talking about her strength, because you feel that women had no strength in the Bible, and I feel that some of them absolutely had huge strength. No, it was not a nice thing to do, but I'm not talking about it from that viewpoint.
And I don't think Jeff was saying that they didn't have any strength.
Exactly. The value of the patriarchs and matriarchs is only one thing: that they are human to begin with, fraught with error, fraught with poor judgment. And the value is that they grow as individuals, that they warrant the blessings they receive because they evolve from fair or bad to better and good. And all of the patriarchs and matriarchs have feet of clay. And the question becomes, we have to search for the goodness that evolves out of these people in order to understand their meaning.
Fabulous. All right, we're going to keep going in the interest of time. We're jumping. Ooh, are we jumping to the next? Well, let's just check this out.
Oh,
He
well,
says,
just one thing. Thank you, Miriam, for that. And I agree with you. And I'm glad that the women didn't have to be circumcised to make it
yeah.
legal.
Woo! Yeah, thank you. You know,
How
now,
did you make them righteous? That's the question.
well, you know what's
You
so
don't
great?
have to, Jeff. You don't have to make them righteous. We can make ourselves righteous.
They're already righteous.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Uh-oh.
don't say uh-oh. Don't say uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
But
Look
you know
out
what's
for
actually
the
very
lightning.
interesting? Now we, well, let me just read this little thing to you. No, let's go back here. Check it out.
Before you get into the Akedah, can I ask you one question?
You can ask me.
That'll set up the tone for me. It's the fact that did God inform Abraham that Isaac would be the progenitor of his race of people? And if that's true, how does that really make the Akedah appear in reality?
Huh?
Happened.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But look at what it says here. We'll go with this. And besides, this is Abraham. She is my true sister. She is my true sister, my father's daughter, though not my mother's, and she became my wife. Right? So they really were brother and sister. I mean, it says it right here in the text. It's pretty bananas. Okay. Now let's look at something here. All right. And maybe Pnina, you can help us a little bit. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm going to read the English translation, but this is interesting, right? What did I say? All translation is interpretation. All translation is interpretation. And I guess you got to kind of look at it, but it could also be, and this was really beautiful. This last year, last year at this time, in this Torah portion, when I was working with a bar mitzvah student, and he wrote this really beautiful Devar Torah about, asking questions if you don't understand something, like asking for clarity when you don't understand something. Don't just jump right in, right? And if you have a question, ask. I mean, he related to, like, if you don't really understand the instructions at school, or if you just need a little bit of clarification on what to do, because if you don't, you may misinterpret what is actually being requested or asked of you. Right? He wrote this really beautiful Torah, a really beautiful Devar Torah based on this line right here. Okay, but I'm going to read it in English first. Sometime afterward, God put Abraham to the test. He said to him, Abraham, and he answered, here I am. And he said, meaning God, take your son, your favored one, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the heights that I will point out to you. Okay, so if we look only at the English, well, clearly God is saying, take him up into this place and sacrifice him, right? And burn him up, right? Offer him as a burnt offering. But if we look at the Hebrew, and this is what was really beautiful, Here. Vayomer, kach na et bincha et yechidcha, right? Take your son, your only son, asher ahavta, that you loved, et Yitzchak, velech lecha el haaretz hamoria, v'ha'alehu, right? V'ha'alehu sham le'olah. So in Hebrew, go up with him, right? V'ha'alehu is the same word, is the same root as to offer him, burnt offering, le'olah al achad, right? Where the translation could also be, you guys go up and you take him up with you, right? You go up, take him up, right? So he's saying, you guys go up, make sure you take him up, rather than you guys go up and you offer him there as a burnt offering, right? So maybe Abraham didn't really understand what God was asking in the first place. Maybe he was saying, like, just go up there with him Go up there, and then we're going to see what happens. And then, but God sees that he interpreted it this way, and he starts making this thing, and he's like, well, where's the ram? Isaac is asking him, where's the ram? Where's the this? Where's the, it's okay. God will provide it. Don't worry. The whole time, Abraham's thinking, yeah, I'm just going to go up there and I'm going to kill him. And maybe God's like, is this guy really going to do this? I just told him to go up there with him. I didn't say go kill him. And then when God realized, oh my God, you think God says, oh my God? Or do you think God says, oh me, what is he about to do? And just before Abraham is about to, God sends the angel and say, whoa, all right. I see you're a serious dude. I see this. I understand you. Just relax. I'm going to take care of you. You guys are going to be as plentiful as the stars and the sand and everything like that. And it all comes down to one's interpretation of what is being requested.
So
right?
would you clarify?
It all comes down to what one is being requested. All right, hold on. I saw a bunch of hands. I'm going to go Susan, Merle, Pnina, Risa, then Risa.
I like your interpretation for what is being requested, but would you clarify what the Hebrew is? Because the English is and offer him. So the direct object is different. Is that what you're saying?
Or bring him.
So bring him and
rather than offer him.
Okay.
Rise him up. Bring him up with you. Like
bring him,
la'alot, like making aliyah to Israel.
That's terrific. And then their offer, here it is, as a burnt offering.
There's no translation. There's nothing there that says burnt offering in the Hebrew specifically. It's inferred by the word olah because that is also become to known as an offering. But a burnt offering really is like a korban. Korban is really a burnt offering.
Well, that's fantastic then. So you're saying instead of offer, it's bring. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
And there have an offering, a korban, and not an olah, which is a burnt offering. Is that what you're saying?
Olah and a korban, they can be flip-flopped for each other.
Yeah.
I love
could be
that.
flip-flop for each other. So maybe he was like, the guy's not paying attention. Okay, I mean, he's not listening to what I'm saying. Wait, is he really doing what he's doing? No, he can't be doing what he's doing. Oh my me, he's doing what he's doing. So that's what God said.
So that makes God actually good and Abraham a kind of dunce.
Yeah, so this is one way of
I like that.
Right? Trying to let Abraham off the hook. I mean, it's kind of a nasty hook, but to kind of let him off the hook. Rather than, because he doesn't say, but then it goes back. He doesn't argue. He's about to go sacrifice his son, his only son, the one that he loves. He argued for these people in Sodom and Gomorrah who he knew were shvach. Right. Yet he doesn't argue for his own son. Chas v'chalila. God forbid. Right? I mean, it's just okay. Merle, Risa, Jeff. Sorry, Pnina. Sorry, Jeff. It wasn't you, Jeff. It was Pnina. After Merle. Sorry. I know Talia was about to get me for that. She's like,
look out for that vicious dog on her lap, boy.
Watch out.
Dog will bite you on the ankle.
What you, Talia. I know better than that. Okay, Merle, Risa. Merle, go.
I'm just thinking, I don't feel like, I'm not sure I can rationalize blaming God or Abraham. I feel like, God didn't exactly make himself clear, being if God was a he or whatever God is. And Abraham, we all interpret things the right or the wrong way, or just flat out don't understand things when we're expected to do something. And so I feel like way back then, isn't any different than now when we don't always interpret things the way the person giving the message expects it to be interpreted.
Yeah, 100%. That is absolutely right. And that's what this boy wrote his Torah, his Devar Torah on, right? Get clarification, right? That can get in so many of our ways in our relationships, on the way that where we really don't understand what the other person is trying to say. And we make we infer, we make these assumptions. And what happens? You make an ass out of you and umption. See, nothing happens to me when you make assumptions. An ass out of you and umption. Nothing happens to me. I know. No, yeah, it's like Merle. I just want to share really quick. It's kind of funny joke. It's in Hebrew, so in Hebrew the joke is much funnier than in English. But I'll explain it to you. And it'll still be good. That interpretation that Isaac, when he's about to get circumcised by his father, and Isaac says, "Are you sure that God didn't say zait? Cut the zait? Are you sure it wasn't zait? Because zait means olives. Like maybe ulai tasek kaze salat kaze, with olives and cucumbers." And then Abraham's like, "Zait? No, uamar zayin, because zayin means, the
do it.
the business, the male business." So he's like, "Yeah, you got to cut the zayin, not the zait." Batuach shod lo omar zait? Batuach zayin, lo zait.
Again, we go back to interpretation or how
exactly.
it was said to us.
That's
the whole
the
thing right there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're running out of time here. We're already over time. Risa, go, and then Nina, and then I want to share one more thing, and then I say goodbye. Go, Risa.
Oh, boo, you didn't let me in.
I did let you in.
I just want to share that Stanley and I had dinner with the Galloways, the two husband and wife PhDs who teach at HUC Bible.
The Garraways.
The Garraways.
Yeah.
Right.
And they spent the entire evening arguing with each other about whether or not the Akedah ever even happened. And they were, each one was on the other side of this issue. It's the first time I had ever heard about it. Just thought I'd share it.
Thank you, Risa. Nina.
Okay. All right. Developing a new faith is a process. You don't come to a realization of what it is that you really believe in 1 minute. Even the message starts with the distorted thinking, because he says, "Kach et bincha et yechidcha."
We know it's not the yechidcha. We know he's not the only son.
There we go. So we know that he wasn't the only son, and then yet he hears God telling him, "Take your only son," number one. Number two, he came from a place where bringing humans to sacrifice was a way of showing that you believe. And he thought that this new faith expects him to do what was done with the Goyim.
Fascinating. Good.
So he goes back now. He's falling back on old habits, but it's still distorted, because like we find out that he says your only son, and he's not his only son. And yet he's looking for a way out, new ways. So he's looking around, and there is nature, and there is the goat, and they were a nation of shepherds. They didn't become farmers, still they come back after the 40 years in the desert. So he's looking at this thing, all those adarim, all those camels and horses, and he's looking what they're doing when they're young, and it's not killing them. And he's looking around, and there is this example of choose life to show that you love somebody, not killing them. You kill only for food, right? That's the rule of hunter or whatever. So the beginning already shows you that it's a distorted thinking, that he thinks that this is what God wants him to do, but he doesn't. It changes the course of history. No more human sacrifices. It was replaced by animal sacrifices.
Beautiful.
And birds and things like that, till we replace it with prayers. So it's a process. That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I guess it really is Tzaddik B'Dorotav. Interesting. All right, check this out. Just last thing here that I wanted to show you. So the first part, it was kind of said, Ochel Shtiya Velina, Eshel, that is my name. And then at the end of the portion, it says, Abraham planted a tamarisk at Beersheba and invoked there the name of Lord, the everlasting God. Vayita Eshel. Vayita Eshel. Tamarisk tree is an Eshel tree. Look at me right here, the Torah portion. There I am. I'm a tamarisk tree for Beersheba. So that's a little personal thing for me. which one of the reasons why I love this Torah portion. All right, everybody. So this was fabulous, per usual. I love hanging out with all of you. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate your time. Nina, I'm going to send you that. I'm going to send you that thing for the classes, and to be continued, everybody.
Thank you.
I was late.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Front yard.
Rabbi Eshel,
Oh, delish.
one of my last batches.
What
You
are they?
can
Figs?
Figs.
She makes this amazing jam.
Oh,
Oh, but
Send
you
a
gotta be
bottle to
careful not
Las
to eat too much of the
Vegas.
jam. You gotta be careful not to eat too much, because you'd be like, because she
What
puts
I
in
learned in
like,
these rooms, though, from Torah study is to not attempt to grab all of it and to like leave some at the very top. One, so I don't fall off the ladder and die. Two, so that the birds have something.
oh,
The-
beautiful.
The gleanings of your field again.
The gleanings of your, I love the way you speak, Jeff, those cadence, the gleaning of your fields. It sounds very, I don't know.
At the front.
Here's my last comment to you, Rabbi.
Please.
And this puts the Akeda in a totally different view.
Mm.
If you believe that every word of the Torah is exact and true, if you believe that the words of God are true and inevitable and undisturbable, so to speak, this Akeda is a sham, because Abraham knows from God himself that Isaac will live and be the progenitor of the entire race. So he knows deep within his soul that though he performs the act in observance and obedience to God, he knows God's will ultimately, he doesn't know how, but he knows that Isaac will be saved somehow. So that it's not on the surface really what it is. Yes, he obeys. Yes, he is observant. Yes, he is obedient. But also he knows that God has made a promise, and God's promises are inviolate. So it's a sham.
What I think is beautiful about that is that it's take a step back from it and say, like, you can't look at every piece of Torah in a vacuum, right? You have to look at what comes before, what comes after. Like, for example, one of the best things that I love, just as an example, like when I talk to kids about, during Pesach, how did the slaves get there in the first place? How did the Israelites get there in the first place? Oh, they don't know. Well, because God created this famine and made sure that they all went down there. And then God, didn't let them leave. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. It's like, what? Wait a second. God created the famine that made sure that everybody went down there to Egypt? What? Huh? They made the promised land unlivable? What? We don't want to talk about that, right? But you can't just look at it in a vacuum. Beautiful. All right, I gotta go. I'm heading over to the temple. I'm gonna be filming a. You know how we did if you saw Hi Ho Kids, the Rosh Hashanah videos for the kids that I did. So we're doing some for Shabbat for the ECC. We're calling it Shabbat Shalom Hey. So I'm going to go film some Shabbat Shalom Hey right now. And then we have a drive-in Shabbat for the religious school families tonight. So I'm going to go get ready for that. I'll see you all soon. Wonderful to see you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Risa, I'm just going to leave you with this because I'm not even going to look at the answer. I was going to answer, but what did you think of that announcement today or last night?
It is absolutely fabulous for University Synagogue, and together we will make Wilshire even stronger. And I am very excited about the whole thing.
What does that mean? I'm not there to know those facts. What does that mean?
University Synagogue is poised to merge with Wilshire. It's poised because our congregation, the University Synagogue congregation rather, has to vote on it the first week in December. Wilshire does not have to vote. It's a decision by the board, which they have already made. And then the AG of the state has to approve the merger. So we're a little way away from having it actually happen, but it's very exciting.
Yeah. Amen. All right, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.
All right, everybody. We will disrupt this process again, I'm sure, together.